Hi guys, I just wanted to make a video on the Gatorade Lab and making sure that we all know how to use Excel. So we talked about this in class, but I wanted to post a video of it as well in case over Thanksgiving break you had some time that you could look at this and try to get some work done. So I'm just going to basically go through exactly what I did in class and show it all again. So when you have your data from your Gatorade Lab, you should have a concentration for each of the solutions we use, and then an absorbance recorded, and then hopefully you also got a transmittance recorded. If you didn't get a transmittance recorded, you can use this data over here, okay, and that was provided by Kristen. So what I want to show you is how to graph this stuff, a couple of little shortcuts that I've used in Excel, and just recap how to set this stuff up. So to make a graph in Excel, I think the best way to do it is to make sure you click off in a cell that has nothing in it, come up top over here, click Insert, go over to the scatter plot, and click the one without any pre-lines in there. Okay? If you click that, you're going to get a graph with absolutely nothing in it, and we have to fill it in the data manually. So I'm going to right-click in the chart area, head down to Select Data, and you'll get this window that pops up. We're going to add a series, and then we get to select our values of X and our values of Y. Okay, in all these graphs, the X-axis will represent concentration. So in order to fill this info in, we can click the little box here, highlight all the concentrations for our X values, and click that little box again. We can then do the Y values for absorbance for our very first graph, hit OK, and we get a graph that looks like this. Okay, I like to delete the answer or the key right away because I don't really need it, so I'm going to delete that. And then we have a blank graph with no axes titles, no chart title, so we have to put those things in as well. Up top, once you are highlighted on the chart, we get these extra 3 menus way up at the top. If I click off the chart, you notice they go away. Okay, now I've just got the normal Excel kind of menus up top. If I highlight the chart again, they're back. Okay, so inside these chart tools, you can go to Layout, click on Chart Title. I usually like to do it above the chart, and I'm going to enter in my absorbance versus concentration as the title. Okay, you may want to include the units of concentration as well, so I'm going to do moles divided by liters just to be complete, and I'm going to make this a little larger so then it's all on one line. There we go. You can add axis titles then as well from the layout menu of the chart. So I'm going to add a horizontal title, I'm going to add a vertical title, and again, you can click in here and change the name. We have concentration on the x-axis. I'll provide the units that we're using, and we have absorbance on the y-axis. Okay, so now we've got things titled, and we just need to include a trend line, and we probably want to fix the x-axis because these numbers are all jumbled up and you can't really read the values down here. So let's fix that first. If you left click on the x-axis, you'll highlight it. You can then right click and go down to Format Axis. Okay, and you'll get this menu that pops up. You can mess with some of the parameters as far as the units that show up on your graph. So right now these are all auto, and what they have it as a minimum of 0, maximum of 8.0 times 10 to the negative 6th, so on and so forth. Okay, if you mess with these values, you can change the range at which your graph is represented. So Excel does a pretty decent job of encompassing the range of your data, but sometimes it does get a little weird and you want a little larger area or something like that, or you want to change the units that are shown on the bottom. But we don't need to really mess with that right now. What I'm going to show you is where I'm going to fix those numbers. So if you go over to Number, okay, we have all these options of how to represent our number. Right now it's just represented generically, and because we're using such tiny values, we end up having 8 decimal places, which makes all these numbers down here all sorts of jumbled. So we're going to change that to scientific. Okay, and I'm going to drop this down to just 1 decimal place because that'll at least give me some space in between where I can read what I'm looking at. If you hit Add, it'll show you a preview of what that's going to look like on the x-axis. Hit Close, and now our numbers look a little better. You can kind of tell what is what. Okay, the last thing we need to fix is the trend line. So if I click on the data, left click on the data, you'll see it highlights all the data points. I can then right click and add trend line. In here we want a linear regression, so we want to make sure that's highlighted. And at the very bottom, we have a couple options. We have set the intercept, we have display the equation, and we also have display an r-squared value. The intercept should be 0 for our graphs. So you are welcome to click this and select that. If you don't, you're going to have some little factor that's either added or subtracted on the end. So what I mean by that is the standard form of a linear line is y equals mx plus b. If you set the intercept to 0, your b is 0. If you don't set the intercept to 0, you're going to have a plus b or a minus b factor with your equation for the line. So I'm going to set that to 0. I'm also going to display the equation on the chart so we can use that in our calculations. The r-squared value I really don't care about. Again, that just is a statistical representation of how well your line matches your data. So I'm going to leave that off. Hit close, and we get this showing up, and we also see that we've got our line now represented on our graph. That's basically the basics for what you need to do. Okay. The other graphs you'll make the exact same way. Okay. We just have to use different variables. So over back in our data table that I have set up over here, the very last data table on your packet has transmittance. Okay, so you should have recorded transmittance just in general, but then we're going to manipulate this variable in multiple ways. So what we want to do is, instead of doing this by hand, we can make Excel calculate it for us. So what I'm going to go is, once I've entered my transmittance as a percentage and as a decimal, now I'm going to make Excel do the math for me. So to enter a formula into an Excel cell, we can first hit the equal sign. Okay, and you can either watch up here or right here to see what I'm doing. And we want 1 divided by the transmittance. Okay, so I'm going to hit equals first to trigger a formula. 1 divided by, and then I can click on the cell where the transmittance is and go like that. Okay, so right now this is telling Excel that it should calculate 1 divided by the cell D2. If I hit enter, it does the math. Okay, so now if you look at this cell, we have 8.63 as the numerical value, but the input inside that cell is that formula. Okay, now you could do that, enter that manually for all these cells to get all these answers, or again, we can make Excel do the work for us. Highlight the cell, come to the bottom right hand corner, and you see my cursor changes to the little black cross. Grab the corner and pull it down. Now all these cells have been calculated the exact same way as the first cell. So if you look at the formula for each of these, I've now gone from D2 in this cell to D3 to D4, so on and so forth, down to D9. Okay, so it's doing a calculation for each of these transmittance individually. So we can do the formula for all 4 of these different calculations we have to do. I'm going to set up a formula in this one. We want 10 to the power of transmittance. So again, equals is what you have to put in first. 10, the little caret symbol, to the transmittance. Hit enter. Highlight the cell, grab the bottom right corner, and drag it down. The log equals log, open parentheses. You have to open parentheses and close the parentheses with the log function. So equals log, open parentheses, highlight the transmittance cell again that we're going to use, close parentheses, hit enter, highlight that cell, grab the bottom right hand corner and pull it down. Negative log, same thing, you have to use parentheses with this function. And there we go. Okay, so now that our data table is completely filled out, now we can graph this stuff. Okay, you're going to have to, I'm requiring you to graph both the transmittance against the concentration as a decimal form, the inverse of transmittance, 1 times 10 to the transmittance, log of transmittance, negative log of transmittance, all versus concentration. So all these graphs will have concentration on the x-axis, absorbance on the y-axis, and yeah, that's all you'll need. So hopefully this video helped you. If you do need some help, please feel free to email me or come talk to me, and I'm happy to help you out with the graphing of this lab.